The first time he touched me, I wanted to run. Not because I was afraid of him, but because I was terrified of myself. For 23 years, my life had been quiet, almost sterile. No one could scent me, no alpha ever reacted, and I'd learned to live with the silent truth that I was a defective omega. I'd built a life on invisibility. A small rented apartment above a laundromat in a sleepy Oregon town. A steady job at the local bookstore. Evenings spent reading in the corner booth of a late-night diner, watching the rain smear the window glass. Nobody looked twice at me. That was the blessing and the curse. But that night, the night everything began, I wasn't in my corner booth. I was on the street outside, cursing at a flat tire under a flickering street lamp, my fingers numb from the cold. And then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy enough to announce their owner without a single word. I didn't look up. In this town, strangers didn't stop for you unless they wanted something. "You're doing it wrong," a deep voice said. The sound of it rolled through me like low thunder. I froze. And that was when it happened, a heat that shot from my chest to my stomach. A sharp, dizzy rush in my head. My hands trembled around the wrench. "Excuse me," I finally muttered, forcing my voice flat. He crouched beside me, close enough that I could feel his body heat through the night air. His hair was dark, damp from the rain, his jaw sharp, his eyes the kind of green that made you forget to breathe. But it wasn't his face that unsettled me. It was the scent. It hit me like a tidal wave, rich, deep, threaded with something wild and dangerous. My instincts surged awake, screaming mine, mine, mine in a voice I hadn't heard since childhood. I jerked back so fast I almost dropped the wrench. "Stay away." His brow furrowed, but he didn't move. "You can smell me." It wasn't a question. It was a fact. One that had no business being true. I'd gone my whole life without scent. Doctors had called it genetic suppression. Therapists had told me to accept it. And now here I was, kneeling in the rain, my pulse hammering in my throat, the air between us thick with something I couldn't name. "Who are you?" I demanded, though my voice came out weaker than I'd intended. "Eli." He said it simply, like he wasn't the reason my entire nervous system was on fire. "And you are?" "Noah." Something shifted in his eyes at my name. He smiled, not a friendly smile, but the kind that promised trouble. The days that followed blurred into something I didn't have a word for. He started showing up at the bookstore, leaning on the counter as if it belonged to him. I tried to ignore him. I failed. Every time he was near, the air felt heavier, hotter, and my body betrayed me with tiny tremors and a quickened breath I prayed no one noticed. He didn't push, not exactly, but he had a way of being there in the aisle when I stocked the poetry section, in the diner when I grabbed coffee, in the shadows when I closed up late at night. I should have been angry. I should have told him to stop. Instead, I kept catching myself looking for him. The worst part? My scent started coming back. Slowly, at first, faint traces of something sweet and warm that clung to my clothes when I got home. Terrified me, because if my scent was returning, so were all the instincts I'd buried. One night, after a shift, I found him leaning against my apartment building, arms crossed like he'd been waiting for hours. "You're avoiding me," he said. "I'm trying." I shot back, pushing past him toward the stairs. His hand caught my wrist gently, but firmly enough that my breath hitched. The moment his skin touched mine, my knees almost buckled. That heat, that pull, that maddening thrum in my chest roared to life again. I ripped my hand away. "Don't." His eyes softened. "You're not broken, Noah." The words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. It wasn't long before the town started talking. Two men seen together too often in a place like this drew whispers. I'd lived here long enough to know that whispers had teeth. My landlord hinted at complaints. My boss started giving me shorter shifts. And yet I kept seeing him. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't stop. One evening, we sat on the hood of his truck at the edge of town, watching the last streaks of sunset fade into the mountains. I told him about my childhood, about being the only Omega in my school who never presented, about the years of testing and the quiet pity in my parents' eyes. He listened, really listened. No interruptions, No pity. Just quiet, steady presence. I don't want to need anyone, I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Needing someone doesn't make you weak, he said. It makes you human. The silence that followed was the kind that wasn't empty. But the peace didn't last. A week later, 3 men cornered me behind the bookstore. I recognized them, alphas who had never bothered with me before. Now, with my scent back, their eyes burned with something ugly. Before I could react, Eli was there. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The men backed off after one look at him, muttering under their breath. When they were gone, he turned to me, jaw tight. This is why you need protection. I don't want a protector, I snapped, though my hands were still shaking. Tough, he said, softer now. You have one. The breaking point came the night of the storm. Power went out across the town, and I sat in the dark, listening to the wind rattle the windows. A knock came at my door, hard and urgent. When I opened it, he was soaked through, rain streaming down his face. Why are you here? I asked, but I already knew. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. Because you smell like fear. Something in me cracked. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was worth saving. Either way, I let him close the distance. When his lips touched mine, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, like he'd been holding back for weeks. My body responded before my mind could catch up, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel defective. I felt alive. The weeks after that were a slow unraveling of every wall I'd built. I let him see the parts of me I kept hidden, the way my hands shook when I was nervous, the way I woke up from nightmares in a cold sweat. And he let me see him, too, the shadows in his eyes, the way he clenched his jaw when he was trying not to break. We were far from perfect, but for the first time I thought maybe that was okay. Because he hadn't just awakened my instincts. He'd awakened something deeper, the belief that I could be loved, exactly as I was. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.